The moment you begin carving the Kotoribako, you've already crossed the line that shouldn't be crossed. It starts with finding wood from a lightning-struck tree, not just any tree, but one that was struck during a summer storm, preferably one that killed someone nearby. The wood carries the violence of that moment, the sudden disruption of nature's order. You have to carve the entire box from a single piece of this wood, your hands working against the grain that wants to resist being shaped into something so unnatural. Then comes the blood offering. Not just a drop, but enough to stain the wood dark, to seep into those freshly carved grooves. Your blood, willingly given, becomes the first bond between you and what you're about to create. Along with it, you need to place a stolen family heirloom inside something that represents broken trust, something taken from someone who once cared for you. The theft becomes part of the ritual, a broken bond that feeds the box's power. All of this happens under a new moon, when the night is darkest and the boundaries between worlds are thinnest. You chant specific phrases that haven't been written down in centuries, words that speak of resentment and vengeance, of transferring suffering from one soul to another. Each element represents another broken taboo: the violated tree, the stolen object, the spilled blood. They're not just components, they're sacrifices of your own humanity. The irreversible moment comes when you seal your name inside. Not written, but carved into the wood with the same blade you used to draw your blood. The moment that final stroke completes your name, the box stops being an object and becomes something else entirely. It becomes a vessel for everything you're about to unleash, and everything that will eventually come back to you. What makes someone go through all this? The belief that they're gaining absolute power over another person's fate. The curse taker thinks they're making a simple transaction, their target suffering in exchange for their own spiritual purity. They believe they can direct the misery like water through a pipe, sending it exactly where they want it to go while remaining untouched themselves. The exact terms are deceptively simple. You specify your target, usually by name and location, sometimes with a personal item if you can obtain one. You state what you want to happen to them: financial ruin, relationship failures, physical illness, or sometimes just general misfortune. That follows them like a shadow. In return, you offer up your own spiritual cleanliness, your connection to the natural order of things. It's the ultimate arrogant assumption that you can control forces that have existed long before you and will exist long after. Ancient scrolls and oral traditions contain clear warnings about the Kotoribako. Temple records from the Edo-period describe it as the unwise man's shortcut to hell and a blade that cuts both wielder and target. But these warnings always get ignored by someone who's desperate enough, angry enough, or arrogant enough to believe they're the exception. They think their hatred is special, their situation unique, their control absolute. The moment the pact seals itself is unmistakable. The temperature in the room drops suddenly, your breath visible in air that was warm seconds before. Then comes the whispering, faint echoes that seem to come from the box itself, voices that might be your own thoughts reflected back at you, or something else entirely. It's not loud, but it's persistent, and it never really goes away after that point. The curse begins working immediately, though you might not see the effects right away. It moves invisibly at first, like poison working through a bloodstream. Your target may wake with unshakable dread or sudden, inexplicable misfortune. While you're already changing too, the bond has formed, and what you've set in motion can't be called back. The transaction was never what you thought it was, and the price was always going to be much higher than you imagined. At first, it seems like the curse is working exactly as intended. Your target starts experiencing strange misfortunes, small accidents that could be coincidence but happen with unsettling frequency. A successful businessman suddenly loses his biggest client over a misunderstanding that shouldn't have happened. A happily married couple begins having arguments over trivial matters that escalate into something darker. The patterns are there if you know to look for them. These tiny fractures in someone's life that start spreading like cracks in glass. Meanwhile, something shifts in you too. There's this growing arrogance, this feeling that you're pulling strings from the shadows. You start believing you have real power, that you can shape reality to your will. Underneath that confidence, there's this unease that you can't quite shake, like you've swallowed something that's moving inside you. You find yourself checking the box more often than you need to, making sure it's still there, still contained. The early warnings come in dreams first. Not nightmares exactly, but restless sleep, where you wake up feeling more tired than when you went to bed. You start noticing things in your peripheral vision, shadows that linger a moment too long, objects that seem to have moved slightly when you weren't looking. At first, you dismiss it as stress or imagination, but the feeling persists. Your home starts feeling different, the atmosphere heavier, like the air itself is watching you. The most dangerous part is how the apparent success masks the growing unease. Seeing them suffer, you call your pain proof it's working. Consumed by their downfall, you miss the decay within. What you send out always returns. Then comes the first real crack in your control. You forget one of the minor ritual requirements. Maybe you neglect to keep the box wrapped in a specific cloth, or you place it facing the wrong direction. It seems insignificant at the time, just a small oversight. But rituals like this don't tolerate mistakes. Every element matters, every detail is part of the balance. That forgotten requirement becomes the first thread that starts unraveling everything. This is when the curse's true nature reveals itself. You realize it was never something you could direct or control. It's more like opening a floodgate and hoping you won't drown in what comes through. The suffering you wanted for your target becomes a force that doesn't discriminate, that doesn't follow directions. It's not a precision instrument, it's a wildfire, and you're standing at the center holding the match. The toll shows. You age fast, bones heavy, struck by pain and illnesses no doctor can name. Your energy drains away, leaving you exhausted even after full nights of sleep. It's like your body is paying the price for the spiritual violation, decaying faster than it should, wearing out from carrying something it was never meant to bear. Your relationships begin to corrupt around you. Friends become suspicious for reasons they can't articulate, pulling away without explanation. Family members start treating you differently, like they sense something wrong but can't name it. Loved ones become distant, and you can't bridge the gap because you can't tell them what you've done. The isolation grows, and with it comes this paranoid certainty that everyone knows, everyone judges, everyone sees the stain you carry. The horrifying realization dawns that stopping it is impossible. You try to reverse the ritual, to undo what you've done, but the box won't allow it. The bond consumes you, breaking it only deepens the trap. The curse was never theirs, it was always yours. Your descent into isolation and paranoia accelerates as the curse feeds on you. You start seeing threats everywhere, interpreting normal events as signs of the curse turning against you. Sleep becomes difficult, food loses its taste, and the world seems to grow colder around you. The whispering from the box becomes more frequent, more insistent, until you're not sure anymore what's your own thoughts and what's the curse speaking through you. You've become a prisoner in your own life, watching everything you valued crumble, while knowing you're the one who brought the demolition crew. The Edo-period records tell of a textile merchant from Kyoto who became the most documented case of Kotoribako's consequences. His name was scrubbed from most official histories, but temple scrolls preserve the warning. Losing business to a younger rival, his resentment grew until he turned to an old ritualist for help. He crafted his box from wood, taken from a pine tree that had been struck by lightning during a festival, killing 3 spectators. The stolen heirloom was a jade hairpin that belonged to his rival's mother, taken during a funeral visit. For weeks afterward, his competitor suffered inexplicable misfortunes: a warehouse fire, key clients abandoning him, even his wife falling ill with a fever that left her bedridden. Then it began. He aged swiftly, his hair whitening in months. His own clients started avoiding him, claiming his shop felt unclean and that transactions with him always seemed to bring bad luck. Within 2 years, he'd lost everything: his business, his family, even his status in the community. He died alone in a rented room, and when they found him, neighbors claimed the small wooden box was clutched so tightly in his hands they couldn't pry it loose. Post-war Japan whispered of a politician who cursed his mentor-turned-rival with a Kotoribako. The story goes that he obtained wood from a tree struck during the Tokyo firebombings, mixing his blood with ashes from the destruction. His target suddenly withdrew from public life due to health reasons and died within 6 months under mysterious circumstances. But the politician's own downfall was swift and brutal. Colleagues described him becoming increasingly paranoid, accusing allies of conspiracies that didn't exist. He lost 3 elections in districts he should have won easily. His family left him, and he spent his final years writing frantic letters to temples begging for cleansing rituals that never worked. The common thread in all these cases is the users. Always desperate, always ambitious, always convinced their situation justified the ultimate transgression. Regional variations reveal how the curse adapted to different areas. In northern regions, they used wood from trees struck by winter lightning, believed to be more violent and unpredictable. Areas sometimes incorporated shipwreck timber or coral fragments. The offerings varied too, sometimes stolen family seals instead of heirlooms, or in extreme cases, clippings of the target's hair obtained through deception. The most telling pattern is how families suppressed these stories. Having a Kotoribako user in your lineage created kegare, spiritual pollution that could affect generations. Families would burn any evidence, change their names, even move to different regions to escape the association. Temple priests would perform purification rituals on entire households, but some stains never fully wash away. To understand why the Kotoribako represents the ultimate horror in Japanese culture, you need to understand kegare, the concept of spiritual pollution. It's not just about dirt or sin, it's a fundamental impurity that disrupts the natural order. The curse embodies this completely. A stain spreads from them like ink in clear water. This represents the ultimate transgression against harmony. Japanese culture values balance and social harmony above almost everything else. The Kotoribako user doesn't just break harmony. They shatter it deliberately, using the pieces as weapons. They're not merely disrupting peace, they're weaponizing discord, and that violation resonates through the spiritual ecosystem like a poison. The connection to debts and obligations makes it even more terrifying. In Japanese society, relationships are built on reciprocal obligations. The curse perverts this completely, creating a debt that can never be repaid because it was never meant to be incurred. It's the cosmic equivalent of stealing from the universe itself, and the revenge isn't personal. It's systemic, inevitable, operating on principles far beyond human understanding. It violates both Shinto and Buddhist principles simultaneously. Shinto honors purity, the Kotoribako twists it for harm. Buddhism teaches karma and the consequences of one's actions. The curse represents the ultimate attempt to cheat karmic justice, to redirect consequences onto someone else. Both systems agree on one thing. Some boundaries exist for a reason, and crossing them invites calamity. The societal fear isn't just about the curse itself, but about the kind of person who would use it. Someone willing to disrupt the natural order so completely represents a fundamental danger to the community. They've placed personal desire above collective harmony, vengeance above balance. This is why families would rather forget such ancestors existed, not just because of the spiritual pollution, but because of what it says about the family's values and place in the social order. The fear endures, a reminder that some forces and knowledge demand too high a price. The box remains forbidden not because it doesn't work, but because it works too well, and once opened, it can never be closed again. The Kotoribako legend hasn't disappeared, it's just found new hunting grounds. Japanese message boards and urban legend sites still buzz with rumors about the curse. You'll find threads where users share hypothetical questions about how it might work, or anonymous confessions from people claiming they've encountered someone who used it. The details are always vague enough to maintain plausible deniability, but specific enough to chill your blood. These stories persist because they tap into timeless fears about ambition and consequence. In our achievement-obsessed world, the temptation to shortcut your way to success, or to drag down someone who's ahead of you, remains powerfully seductive. The legend adapts to new anxieties: corporate rivals instead of merchant competitors, social media influencers instead of community leaders. The packaging changes, but the poison inside remains the same. Temple priests and cultural preservationists still offer unofficial warnings about the Kotoribako. They don't advertise this knowledge, but if someone comes asking about curses or revenge rituals, they'll steer them away from certain topics with careful, deliberate silence. One Shinto priest described it as the knowledge that shouldn't be shared, even as a warning, because some minds will hear instructions where we mean caution. Globalization created a dangerous new curiosity among occult enthusiasts overseas. Western practitioners of various magic traditions sometimes stumble upon references to the Kotoribako and treat it like just another spell to be collected and tested. They miss the cultural context, the understanding of kagare and war that makes the curse so terrifying in its original setting. They see the mechanics without understanding the spiritual ecosystem they're tampering with. The desperate and arrogant alike ignore the signs, convinced they're the exception. The heartbroken think their pain justifies anything. The ambitious convince themselves their goals are too important to fail. The vengeful become so focused on another's suffering, they forget they'll be drinking from the same poisoned cup. The internet age hasn't changed human nature. It's just given dangerous ideas wider distribution and easier access. Reversal is impossible because the curse isn't something that happens to you. It becomes part of you. Think of it like spiritual DNA mutation. Once that change occurs, there's no going back to what you were before. The bond forms at a level deeper than intention or consciousness, rewriting your connection to the world around you. You don't carry the curse, you become the curse. The ultimate fate unfolds in stages. Complete isolation comes first, as the kagare you carry makes others unconsciously avoid you. Then comes decay, a withering from within as the spirit crushes the body. Finally comes spiritual annihilation, the erosion of everything that made you who you were, until you're just a vessel for the suffering you tried to redirect. The legend teaches a brutal lesson about the boundaries of human ambition. There are realms we're not meant to enter, forces we're not meant to command. The Kotoribako represents the ultimate arrogance, the belief that we can manipulate the fundamental mechanics of consequence itself. It's not just breaking rules, it's trying to rewrite the rulebook while the game is already in play. The cultural lesson echoes across generations. Some doors shouldn't be opened because what comes through can't be put back. Some knowledge shouldn't be sought because having it changes you in ways you can't anticipate or control. This isn't about superstition. It's about recognizing that certain forces operate on scales beyond human comprehension, and our attempts to harness them usually end with us being crushed by their weight. The final warning remains unchanged for centuries. The price of trespassing where humans don't belong is always the same. You might gain temporary advantage, you might see your enemy suffer, but the accounting always comes due. And when it does, you discover the terrible truth. You were never the master of the curse. From the moment you carved that first piece of lightning-struck wood, you were its servant, and eventually you become its final victim. The legend lives now in quiet moments and empty spaces, in the way someone might hesitate before speaking ill of a rival, or the unease that settles in a room where bitterness has festered too long. It's in the stories that aren't told, the family histories with gaps that no one questions, the way certain topics get changed with deliberate casualness. These stories remain untested by those who truly understand, because true understanding brings fear. The people who know the old ways don't experiment with them. They respect the boundaries, recognizing that some lines exist for protection, not limitation. The silence around the Kotoribako isn't absence of knowledge. It's the wisdom of knowing when not to speak, when not to ask, when not to know. There's cultural wisdom in leaving certain mysteries alone. Not everything needs to be explored, not every secret needs uncovering. Some doors remain closed, not because we can't open them, but because we understand that what lies behind them should stay where it is. The preservation of mystery itself becomes a form of protection, a recognition that human curiosity needs limits to survive itself. The Kotoribako embodies the cost of defying our limits, a power that corrupts, consumes, and teaches through eternal silence. Subscribe to Voice of Fear for more horror stories.